to Momentum in Real Estate, your guide to success in the dynamic world of real estate. I'm Corey Wolf.
And I'm Kristen James. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, we're here to help you reach new heights.
Success in real estate comes from learning, growing, and serving others.
Join us as we dive into strategies for lead generation, marketing, market trends, and client relationships.
Get ready to ignite your momentum and achieve your goals in real estate.
Let's dive in and unlock your full potential.
This is Momentum in Real Estate.
Meet Sophia Tallman, a fresh face in the real estate world with a heart for animals and a talent for baking. Serving the Jacksonville, Alabama market, she's dedicated to fostering meaningful connections and guiding her clients through their buying and selling endeavors. Welcome to the Momentum in Real Estate podcast, Sophia.
Hi, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. We're so excited too. Thank you. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your real estate story. Like, how'd you get started and all the good things?
Okay, so it's very unexpected. So my mom was a real estate agent when I was a kid, and I was always, from a very young age, she always told me, you're going to be in sales. This is what you're going to do. And of course, being me and a kid, being like, Mom, you have no idea. I'm going to do something completely different. And I honestly thought that I was. I went into the University of Arkansas. I got a bachelor's in criminology, sociology, and psychology, thought that I was going to work in law enforcement, really only thought that was what I was going to do. And then my significant other is a football coach for universities. So when him and I met in college, he said, we're going to be moving a ton. I just want you to know. And I said, okay. And my career wasn't flexible like that. Like, I couldn't just continuously transfer back and forth to different departments and to different places. So I got really kind of swept up. We moved. We had 3 days to move. And when we moved, I didn't have a job. So I hung out for a little bit. And I had always been interested in the real estate game and investing and how all that worked. And of course, from my childhood, I always had those things that my mom would tell me in the back of my head of like, oh, well, if somebody puts in a pool, it doesn't actually add that much value to their house. Like, I just would always think about those things. Met a bunch of people when we moved to Alabama that were in the real estate game, and they had questions for me about like, oh, well, what about this area? What do you think? And I said, well, this area has this to offer, but also it would only be exciting for somebody that was looking at this specific thing. And they said, why don't you just do this? Like, why don't you just get into it? And of course I had to call my mom, and I said, well, I guess talks too much on all of my report cards did something, because I'm now going to go into real estate. And that's kind of the weird roundabout way. And I guess it's super unconventional, but I feel like to some degree, everybody has this like unconventional way of getting into it. So that's mine.
That's awesome, Sophia. And you're right. Like, there is no one path that people take to get into the industry. So we love hearing your story and how this kind of worked out for you. I gather that you're pretty new to the industry. So I'd love to hear just briefly, like, what brokerage are you with? How did you make that decision? What kind of guided you in that part of the decision making?
So I am definitely new. I have had my license now for about, I want to say, a little less than 3 months. I'm with Keller they're technically based out of like Oxford, which is about 30 minutes from Jacksonville, which is where I live, and I primarily serve this area. But it's all in the same county, which is Calhoun County. And really, it was kind of a weird way that I got there as well. When we first moved to Jacksonville, I had met a few people that worked in bar scenes and stuff like that. And I just ended up chit-chatting with them, and they had friends that were agents at Keller Williams, and turns out to be some of the top agents in all of Alabama. And they became really good friends of mine. And they just said, hey, do you want to come check it out if you do get your license? And with the thought process of there is potential that we're going to be moving so consistently, I wanted the ability to continuously save the same email address, save all of my same templates, and I guess to some degree it's kind of lazy, but I just wanted to be able to swap it no matter where we were and never have to worry about the fact that somebody here may have not bought a house, but they just had questions for me and they could still have that chain of contact with me and it never really goes away, or they never have to worry. I wonder if she changed her email. I know she doesn't live here anymore, but she's the only one that I talk to and I don't know who to use in this area anymore. So I kind of just, Keller Williams was something that I thought mentally was going to be the safest for me, and that's where I went.
That's great. Well, tell us a little bit about your business so far. Like, did you come into it knowing that you had a deal, or like, where are you at?
So I kind of came into it knowing that I had a deal. I had been looking at this building that was an absolute icon for this area. And I'm not from here, so I didn't really have any sort of emotional attachment to it. But I do love baking. I do love just bringing people together. And so I was maybe potentially looking at that building to open up like just a very small bakery, and ended up talking to the guy that owned it. His dad had owned it previously. There were just too many renovations that were needed, so I wasn't necessarily interested, but I have a friend who's an investor. And so I mentioned to him, like, hey, if you want to talk to him, maybe this is something that you would be interested in. And the building had sat, the person that had owned it previously, they had tried to list it for just an outrageous price that, because of all the work, wasn't really going to make it. And so it sat on the market for about 2 years. So I talked to a friend of mine who was an investor. He bought it from that person. And then I had just gotten my license and he said, it's only fair. We want you to list it. And so I said, okay. And he said, just be aware, this may sit for a long time, but it may be something that like can just kind of get your feet wet and it'll give you time to learn. And I listed it, ended up just talking to a bunch of random people and sold it in 4 days. And I had no idea what I was doing and had like 1.5 million people on the phone with me just being like, okay, can I send you the draft of this? What does this look like? It's a legal document. I want to make sure that it's right. And they were like, no, that was great. And have just enjoyed the whole process and learned a lot within that first 4 days of like, okay, this is the process. This is how you do it. But I never knew that they were going to let me list it. I just knew that this was something that I wanted to do. And that was like my first bit of exposure to it, of like, hey, you can talk to him if you're interested. And it just so happened to work out. So
That's amazing. And I'm guessing that was a commercial property and commercial transaction. So for that to be your very first transaction in real estate is pretty remarkable. Typically we dip our toes in the residential space unless we know we're going to kind of go down the commercial path. So congrats on a really successful first sale. That's awesome.
thank you. The area that we live in is pretty small. And so a lot of people actually go outside this county to get any commercial work done. And so I had zero idea really what that kind of looked like. But since then, I've had a ton of people reach out to me with their commercial properties because they want somebody that's local rather than going to Birmingham or Huntsville. So it definitely set me in this weird motion that I wasn't really expecting, but it's been really exciting.
Wow, that's great. And so tell us kind of in light of that experience and kind of the business that is coming to you because of that, what direction do you feel like your business is going to take, or do you want it to take? I mean, are you thinking like you're going to move into the commercial space, or do you really want to invest in the residential area?
So this is kind of a funny question for me because I have had so many people reach out to me about commercial properties, and I've enjoyed kind of the process of that and have made friends with surveyors now and people that I can just call for different things. But my really want space is first time home buyers beyond anything else. And gotten my website and everything out just yet. And so that's kind of coming, but I've got certain like blog posts and email chains that I want to get out, and I'll kind of like touch on it because it means a little bit more to me. But last year I bought a house, and I really didn't understand the process. And I had an agent who was super sweet to me, but I could tell that she was a more seasoned agent, and she primarily worked with people selling their house versus buying, and especially not first time home buyers. And so I fell into this space of sign this, do that, here's what this is. And that was great because she really got me through the process, but it just felt like I was just pushed through the process. I didn't have really any understanding. So all of my friends laugh because I call last year's me little me. And that little me was somebody that didn't really understand. Obviously, I'm an adult and everything else, but even when you're adult, if you don't understand something, you revert into this childlike, just little you. So I really want to work with first time home buyers, and I just want it to be a safe space to protect the little me's that are in everybody. So that's where I want to move into. But the commercial buildings that I've looked at and the people that I've talked to has been really interesting. And I'm definitely not opposed to it, but I think my heart's definitely with the first time home buyers.
I love that. Kristen and I share that sentiment too. It's such a sweet moment. And when they buy with you and they're just so thankful that you've educated them and helped them, it's the sweetest thing ever. I actually just had someone text me this morning, was like, we just had coffee on our porch and it's the best. They're just like so much more appreciative. So I love that. Okay, I have a question about, you just seem like such a go-getter, and that I think is so important in this industry, especially brand new and in today's market. So tell me what you do to surround yourself by people, how you get answers, your mentorship. Lay that all out for people that are listening.
Yeah, so my mentors have honestly just come out of friendships that I've built with people. I think it's very easy to fall into the space of, yes, real estate is a business and it pays the bills and it does all of those things. But like you just said, like people reaching out to you and saying, hey, I just had coffee on my front porch for the first time, and how exciting is that? It's so much more. This is creating such a space for people to have something that they've never had, or the opportunity that they maybe never thought that they could. And so the mentors that I've had and that have gravitated toward me, or I've gravitated toward them, has just been based off of friendships. And they're agents that have been in the business for a long time. And so they have all of these little things that they're like, oh, this matters, but this that you're kind of pushed on, like, maybe is not really how you do this. And they've been very open and honest with me about what you put into it is what you get out of it. So the more you do and the more you want to do it, the more it shows. So I guess that's where my mentors have come from. And I've got really a few that I hang out with consistently, and they're all a part of different brokerages and they're all at different levels. And I just think that the more people that you can talk to that have so much different outlooks on things and on life, or come from different places, the more you can grow. And I've really, really loved just getting to pick their brain on things, even if it's just something small.
That's amazing, Sophia, and so smart of you to early on in your career to just put yourself in spaces and in rooms with people that are going to help you learn and grow. And some of it like will feel intimidating, initially, because you're like, I'm new, I don't really know what I'm doing. But I know Corey and I have both benefited from that activity, just pushing yourself to get in those rooms with experienced agents, seasoned agents who have a heart for pouring into younger, newer agents. So, good on you for just pursuing that and putting yourself in that space. I'd love to kind of dial back just briefly. I mean, I know you haven't been out of college for all that long. What experiences or even courses that you had at the University of Arkansas, how did that shape kind of your entry into real estate and just some of the experiences you've had initially?
So when I was in college, I had a few moments where I just was like, oh, real estate, investing. money, like all of these different things. But they were all at very weird times and they were never really consistent. So it would just kind of like pop up and then it would go away, and then it would pop up and it would go away. But there were a few classes that I took that were just, honestly, they were electives that I just didn't know what else to take. And people had told me, oh, they're an easy class. So at Arkansas, everything was labeled in your classes like a thousands level. So 1,003 or 1,050 or 1,054, those were considered like freshman level courses, but they would still help you in your degree path and everything like that. So there were a certain amount of credits that you had to have. And by my junior, I think I want to say my junior year, COVID had happened. So everything was online and I really didn't know what I was going to do because I am not an online class taker. It's just very difficult for my brain. Obviously talks too much. I have to be in a class with people. I have to be able to chit chat with them. So I just decided, okay, junior year, gotta do this. I'll take a thousands level course. It'll be super easy. It'll be fine. I took a course that was called Your Money and You. And I wish that it was a mandatory class for college students to take. It was about taxes, credit, debt to income ratios. Like, nobody had ever said any of those things to me. My parents were very like, have money saved, have this, have that. But credit cards were always a very taboo subject, and we don't want you to do this in case the fact that you might get into credit card debt. And I'm super thankful for that, but also that's just unfortunately not how the world works anymore. And everybody falls into this terrible category as a fresh out of college or a young adult, that they get a bunch of credit cards and they put a bunch of stuff on it because they think that they have to, and then they don't know how to pay it back. And really, like, the moments in college that were just kind of like, oh, were my friends getting into credit card debt? Or, hey, we got a credit card because we were told that we have to, and not really knowing how to maneuver that. And then taking that class and understanding how everything really worked. And honestly, I'm really bummed that I took it as late as I did because I took so much out of that course. But then the other moments of how everything that I learned in that class actually pertained to how you were going to potentially buy a house, buy a car, like all of these different things that it's all tied to. And obviously in college, you have to find somewhere to live. And so I lived in an apartment, but I also had a dog, and I didn't want to subject him to the apartment lifestyle because I needed to live in an apartment for the cheaper sake. And then living in houses that I would talk to my landlords, and they were just me's. Like, I thought that they were these crazy big up people and that they must have all this money and it's just lying around. And that's just not the case. So as I would live in these houses and I would live in these apartments and I would learn more about finances, I was like, wait a second. What am I missing here? What was I not told? So I guess Arkansas was kind of this mesh of just information that I was taking in, and I never really knew where it was going to go. But my mom, my boyfriend, everybody in my life has always said that, you take in information and eventually it'll go somewhere. And my dad has always called me a vast empty wasteland of useless knowledge. I love trivia. I love all of those random nuance things. So I just thought that learning those things were just going to be a part of it. Like, I never really thought that it was going to go anywhere. And I've had so many friends now ask me about, well, why do you have 3 credit cards? What's the point of that? And I'm like, well, there's a medical credit card, there's gas and groceries, and then there's just life events of things you just didn't see coming. And every time I'm like, oh, your money and you, like, that's just, it keeps popping up. Or friends asking, well, how can I buy a house if I don't have millions of dollars? And I'm like, I felt the same way like 4 years ago. And it's just always come back somehow, that just the little things that I picked up on. So
Ah, beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love that. Kind of crazy because you think about college as like you get it and then you forget it unless you're going to be like a surgeon. But I love that.
exactly.
That's awesome. I took a virtual online class once because I thought, oh, it'll be easy. And I got a B. I was so mad, but I just sucked at the whole virtual world. Anyways.
My whole
um,
last 2 years were all online, and it was awful. Like,
yeah.
I could only imagine how everybody else felt. Like, I could only imagine how freshmen felt having to start college online and having just absolutely no idea about the college experience, or like seniors in high school not getting to go to prom, just little things. Like, it completely changed
Yeah.
everything, and still to this day changed how I learned things too. Like, having to adapt to online and then going back to being in people spaces was just a nightmare, honestly.
Oh man. So where is your boyfriend coaching right now?
So he is a coach at Jack State. He's a strength and
Okay.
conditioning coach for the football team. So we got here last January. And then 2 years prior to that, he was actually a coach at Arkansas. So we both
Awesome.
graduated, and then we stayed for an additional, I want to say, year and a half. And then it's called the coaches carousel. It just moves really quickly. And he was underneath somebody who left. So that meant that everybody underneath him was gone. And you just keep moving and you rotate through all these schools. But he's at Jack State now. So
He'll be there for the whole season. Like you're not planning on moving anytime soon. Okay,
no,
awesome.
so we are here. Season actually starts at the end of this month, so we're really excited. Last year was a history making season for Jack State and just for all college football. So we've had a really extremely enjoyable time here, and yeah, go Gamecocks.
That's awesome. Okay, so what advice would you give a woman in starting her career in real estate?
Ah, there's so many things, honestly. There are so many spaces that I think people will minimize you as a woman. And that's a really hard thing to overcome, because when you are loud, they call you names. And then when you are quiet, people call you names. So there's this very fine line. And you really have to be comfortable with the fact that it just doesn't matter. Like, you can do all of the things under the sun and people can say all of these different things, but it genuinely doesn't matter. As long as you are helping people in the way that you want to, you're not harming anybody, you're not being catty or vindictive to other people, then you are okay. Let people say whatever they want to, but be comfortable and confident in what you want to do, because it's going to work out. Also, don't get swept up in the potential cattiness that there is. And I hate to say it, because everybody wants to say that we're all on a team and we're all here for each other, but it's still competition in some way or another. And some people handle that competition differently than you might, and that's okay. But keep pushing. Don't let it deter you. Surround yourself with people that make you feel good, that are helpful to you. And I do think that, Kristen, you had mentioned that going into a room with all these different people can be extremely intimidating, and it can be. But I think, and I kind of revert back to, they all have little me's in them as well. And so those are just people. And at the end of the day, like, what does it matter? You might think about something, you have that moment where you're laying in bed and you think about something from like sixth grade or high school, and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? But nobody else remembers those things. So it's like, go in, talk to people, be who you are. Also, lean into your femininity. Like, there are so many times that I have talked to very successful male agents about their business and how they do things. And they'll ask me a question about, hey, the wife of the person that just bought this house, she really likes plants. Like, what plant should I get? And those are just little things that, as a woman, you may not have an up. Like, there's men that know about plants and stuff, but women pay more attention to the small details and to the little things, and lean into that. Like, be very, oh my gosh, you love plants. I love plants. What kind of plants do you like? You can have different conversation that, unfortunately, but not unfortunately, for some men, that might be weird. You kind of get a little bit more of that. So lean into it. Don't stray away from it. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. There's so many things I could tell to new female agents, or even just existing agents that go through that back and forth of, am I doing this right? Why is he more successful, or why does he get more phone calls? That's fine. The people that are going to want you are going to call you. And if they don't call you, do you really want them anyway? At the end of the day, this is about relationships. And if you're just not going to click with them because they don't see you in the same light, then that's okay too.
So good, Sophia. I love
That's
it.
amazing.
I see you on a stage one day. You're going to be speaking. I
Thank you.
Kristen and I just got back from a conference, and a quote that I've heard before came back up, and now it's like seared in my brain, from Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So when you started talking, I was like, oh, I need to bring that quote up again,
I
because
love that.
what you said is like exactly that. Like, you have to shut out that noise. And Eleanor said it the best, I think.
It's so good, Sophia. Like, you exude such a confidence and maturity, and can tell that you are really just seeking to be wise in how you navigate just life in general, but also, this industry, which can be an awesome field. It can also be really challenging. And so I just love your attitude and just fortitude to just be you. And I feel like you're going to have such a great, prosperous business because of that.
Thank
So
you.
I love that. Tell us, as we're kind of nearing the end of our time together, tell us about the market in Jacksonville, where you are. Like, what are you seeing? What kind of trends? Just give us a little market update.
Yeah. So with the university growing, so this is technically a little bit of like tiny little minute history about the area. So this is actually the smallest D1 area. Like, out of D1 colleges anywhere, this is the smallest population of people. And over the past, I want to say 3 years, so about a year before we got here, Coach Rich Rodriguez has been here. He got here now, he's on his 4th year, but after year 1, people started taking a little bit more of a notice, and he really changed the program, which in turn obviously boosts the student enrollment at school. And so the school is expanding, more people are taking interest. There has been an influx of people coming into town, which in turn has been an influx of people looking for houses, parents looking for houses to buy for their kids to move into. There's just kind of been this mini boom, I guess you would say. And anybody that has ever lived in an area that didn't have that initially and then has seen it grow, I don't know that they would see that. But I grew up in a very big city. Where I lived primarily was popular, but it was still like really quaint and small, just for that like neighborhood. And then as time went on, it became a multi-million-dollar neighborhood, and it just kind of had this big boom that was out of nowhere. And so I've always kept up with those little trends of seeing people come in and realizing, something's gonna happen here. And so that's just been the trend that it's moving in. And so there's an influx of people, there's an influx of buyers, and there's starting to become this group of sellers that is seeing those people come in. So it's been actually really nice to see everything going back and forth, but there's definitely more buyers than there are sellers in this area, which has been a really cool thing for me to see, especially being new and more working in the commercial space. Like I mentioned, I'm launching my website, and I'm actually making a magazine that's for first-time home buyers, and like picking those up and getting with brokerage, like mortgage lenders and different brokers, and just seeing the information. But it's been definitely like a rising trend of people wanting things, which is a really cool thing, because a lot of people in the area primarily had lived in the same house for like 40 years, and they had inherited it from their family. So it's definitely changing here.
That's awesome. That actually is really helpful just to get a picture of the world that you're living in and the dynamics of it. So yeah, that's awesome. Corey, I have a change of topic. Do you have anything else on this theme? So as a baker, what's your favorite thing to bake?
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite question. Okay, so I do have, I think everybody has like the like confident side, but don't let it fool you. I definitely have my down days, and I have relatively bad anxiety. So baking actually is the way that I can fix that for myself. And so the more, and it sounds so weird, the more complicated something is, the better it is for my mental. I love baking like really elaborate cakes that have 12 different layers and all different kinds of fillings and ganache and toppings. And I will try and make everything from scratch if I can, because it just like, it prolongs the baking period for me and makes me feel good. But I also just super like the most random thing that's like my absolute favorite is bread. Sourdough is like my absolute, like I love it. And I have sourdough classes with my friends where I teach them how to make it. And I will like double or triple my starter so that I can give it to all of my friends in these like mason jars that have like labels about how to keep them. Like it just makes me really happy. And I tend to always give it to my friends that are like, I'm just like freaking out today. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's make bread. Like it'll be great. So bread or really extreme cakes?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, first of all, sourdough is my favorite. Second of all, Kristen and I, we're going to have part 2 to this conversation, but Kristen and I are like desperately going to want to talk to you about how you can make that bread event an appreciation event and make you get more clients that way, because that's our forte. So
I have already planned everything.
oh, good, great.
Okay.
I have already planned everything. I've got
Good.
people on a list to get certain cheddar and jalapeno like loaves for special events that they have. I'm doing a recipe swap that I'm really excited about. So I've made recipe cards that have like a bunch of my recipes on it, and then like my family recipes, and then blank ones for people to also just kind of like put in, and then I'll get them scanned and sent out in an email chain. Like I've got so many things that are like in my brain for it.
We need, our next conversation then is sharing ideas, because I want to add to my list of things that I could do, like creative
absolutely.
Event ideas. Like as Corey said, we love to gather people and just love on people. So whether it's neighbors or our clients or our vendors. So I feel like you're a resource for us now.
I would love to. I've got
we can be a mutual resource.
So many things in here.
That's
love
awesome.
It.
That's so good. Well, Sophia, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. We really appreciate it. And I hope that this has just inspired so many newer agents, because I know it's inspired me even just 4 years in. So thank you.
Thank y'all for having me. This has been really exciting, and it's super nice to get to talk to different people. And obviously, I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. I will always try and find somebody smarter than me. And so this has just kind of opened up my eyes too about things that maybe I thought were small, but can be important for somebody else. So this was really great. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Momentum in Real Estate. We hope you found valuable insights and strategies to propel your real estate journey forward.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates with you. Remember, success in real estate is about continuous learning, growth, and serving others. Keep that momentum going and watch your business thrive.
Until next time, keep pushing forward and bringing your real estate dreams to life.
This is Corey Wall
and Kristen James signing off from Momentum in Real Estate.